The fifth-year option deadline for players in the 2022 draft is today. Plus, we take a look at the remaining free agent class, which is starting to heat up a little bit. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Thursday, May 1 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov, turning the calendar to a new month, the month of May. And of course, the NFL draft is officially over. Not much talk over here on the show today about those young guys from the 2025 draft, but we will be talking about players from the 2022 draft because today at 4 Eastern, it is the deadline to pick up the fifth-year option on those players to tack on one more year on their contract. Are you accepting? Are you declining? Will you just extend the contract without making a decision? All those decisions must be made by today. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? It's good to see you. Where are we starting here today?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go right into the option deadline. Like you were talking about, it is going to be today at 4 p.m. Eastern. We already have a good idea of some of the guys that have accepted it. There's some of the no-brainers that they've placed it on, guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Drake London, some of those bigger players. Chris Olave was someone that I think maybe some people thought, we'll see what the concussions before on the table. But when it really comes down to it, that's a very talented player. I want to take a look real quick at some of the guys that were notable in the sense that they could have maybe gone both ways. You got guys like Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Ike Ekwonu, Dax Hill. Those are all guys that, were a little bit on the edge the last few years of whether they were going to be worth that amount of money with the fifth-year option being picked up there. Can you go through some of those guys that are more of the notable ones that have taken place already? And if there's any surprises really there?
Yeah, so a few things here. First of all, the fifth-year option is fully guaranteed. It used to be under the old CBA that it actually was only guaranteed for injury. So some teams would pick it up, and then after the next season was over, they could still cut the player as long as the player could just pass the physical. Now, as soon as you pick it up after his third year, you are locking in fully guaranteed money for 2 years from now. So that is a very big deal over here. And the amounts, it varies by player. There's a whole formula to it. There's a basic formula. There is a playtime formula. There is, if you made one Pro Bowl, you get a specific amount. If you made 2 or more Pro Bowls, you get the highest amount. So that's basically how it works. Each player has a different value. And going into today, there's really only 2 players, I would say, that are currently up in the air. It could be by the time you listen to this, maybe decisions have already been made, but those 2 players are Packers linebacker Quay Walker, the number 22 overall pick. That option is $14.7 million. And then Zion Johnson, the guard with the Chargers, who they've also thought about maybe playing at center, number 17 pick, $17.56 million. He has started, I believe, 49 out of a possible 51 games there. The question really becomes, are you going to pick up an option of that high of an amount for a player like him? So those are probably the 2 of the up in the air ones. There are 10 players that by the end of today are going to be declined if they have not been declined yet. Let's get those out of the way first. Evan Neal is the highest pick of that draft, number 7 pick. He will be declined. Kenyon Green traded from the Texans to the Eagles this offseason. He will be declined. Jahan Dotson, the Eagles receiver as well, traded from Washington. He will be declined. Treylon Burks, who was a part of that big trade with the aforementioned Eagles, with the A.J. Brown trade. He will be declined. Number 18 pick, Trevor Penning, number 19 pick with the Saints, the offensive tackle. He has already been declined. Kenny Pickett, who is now in Cleveland after last year being with the Eagles. Eagles had a lot of these people in this draft over here who were busts, clearly. He's also getting declined. Khair Elam, who was drafted by the Bills, traded to the Cowboys this offseason. He is going to be declined. Devin Lloyd, number 27 pick in Jacksonville, has been declined. Cole Strange, one of the stranger picks in that draft, number 29 pick, he will be declined as well. The biggest name from that list who also was declined, who I did not mention yet, is Tyler Linderbaum, the center in Baltimore. This is going to be one of the bigger topics here today as well, because he has been a 2-time Pro Bowl center in Baltimore, one of the best in the NFL. But because he has been a Pro Bowler 2 times now, his option value is super high. It is $23 million plus. And for the Ravens' sake, the highest paid center in the NFL is $18 million per year with Creed Humphrey. So they were like, we love Tyler. We want to keep Tyler, but we're not going to pick up an option and make him the highest paid center by $5.4 million a year. So they declined his option officially. And the goal for them now is to try to get an extension done closer to that $18 million plus per year number. So that's the reason why they declined it. I saw there was a lot of reaction like, whoa, why are you guys doing that? He's a good player. That is the context behind why they did it. While all the other players we mentioned, they were declined because the numbers were too high for the player, that they're not worth it. Obviously, Tyler is worth a lot of money. Just his option, because he made the Pro Bowl 2 times already in the NFL, it was too high for where the center market is over here. And really, it's part of the NFL's, I guess, problem a little bit, because they combine the entire offensive line together when it comes to valuations, whether it's for the franchise tag or the 5th-year option. They consider a tackle, guard, and center to all be the same position. And of course, we know tackles get paid higher than guards, and guards get paid higher than centers. And Linderbaum being a center, he essentially has a 5th-year option that would be more suited for an offensive tackle. So he's going into the final year of his contract right now, but Baltimore and their GM, Eric DeCosta, they made it a priority to try to extend him this offseason before he becomes a free agent next year. And people are like, oh, we don't have to extend him now. We can use the franchise tag next year. The franchise tag would be the same dilemma as the 5th-year option, where, again, it would be too high of an amount, and he would have an open path to free agency. So Linderbaum's situation is actually very interesting because he has so much leverage here where he's like, listen, if you don't pay me right now, I'm going to become a free agent next year. So right now, highest paid center is $18 million per year. I think he's going to aim to try to become the first ever $20 million per year center in the NFL, because if they don't do that, he's going to become a free agent next year. And of course, Baltimore does not want to lose him. As for the guys who were picked up, and there are a lot of guys who were picked up over here, we'll go through all the names here quickly. We'll have a few of them here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But Trayvon Walker, first pick overall in that draft, has really come along the last couple of years, over 20 sacks the last 2 years. He was picked up, as was Aiden Hutchinson. Derek Stingley already got extended in this draft. He signed that big 3-year, $90 million extension. His 5th-year option was picked up as part of the deal. So really, it was a 4-year extension when you tack on the 5th-year option as well. Sauce Gardner, number 4 pick, was picked up. Kayvon Thibodeau, number 5 pick, was picked up. Ike Equator, number 6 pick, was picked up. Drake London, the receiver in Atlanta. Charles Cross, the offensive tackle in Seattle. Garrett Wilson, the receiver with the Jets. Chris Olave, receiver with the Saints. Jameson Williams, receiver with the Lions. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle in Philadelphia. Kyle Hamilton, safety in Baltimore. Trent McDuffie, the cornerback in Kansas City. Tyler Smith, the outstanding guard in Dallas. Jermaine Johnson, pass rusher coming off the Achilles. He was picked up as well. And then Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle in Green Bay. George Karlaftis, pass rusher in Kansas City. And last but not least, Dak Sale, the defensive back in Cincinnati. All those players had their options picked up already, or the plan is to pick it up here later today. And all those guys are now under contract with another year through 2026 on their deals. And essentially, all those players, just like Derek Stingley, are right now extension eligible as well. So the Texans worked quickly to get a deal done with Stingley. All those players, you tack on 1 more year. So you don't have to do it now. But sometimes, like we always say on this show, if you know you have a good player, don't wait. Just get it done now. Do an extension with 2 years left. Do a 4-year extension, 5-year extension, add 2 more years. You have the player done for the long run with your franchise. So would not surprise me if some of these players over here that we mentioned, including Aiden Hutchinson, including those 3 Jets players, at least 2 of them, Sauce and Garrett Wilson, I think all those players have a shot of getting extended over here once we enter May, June, July, August, those months, which is usually extension season in the NFL for the team's brightest and best players. So that is all coming up over here today. Teams must decide after year 3. It felt like we had the 2022 draft like a year ago, and here we are already with 5th-year options over here happening. And you see, Ben, like we just had the draft. Everyone thinks they got the best player ever in the first round. Half of these work, half of them don't. And that's kind of the way it is over here. And that's when you look back over here at a draft that happened a few years ago, that's where all of it stands right now.
Yeah, what do you think? Kind of like reflecting back on this, I obviously think that we can all look and say it probably would have been a little bit of a different order, as it would be with most drafts. Trayvon Walker at the time was already one of those picks that people looked at. It's like, it's kind of a little bit like Shamar Stewart this year, where it's like, We see the physical body there. We see the upside. We see where this could work. It took a little bit longer for him to be able to develop to that guy that people said, okay, we could see why a 5th-year option would be picked up. I think a lot of people now would say Aiden Hutchinson would have been maybe a smarter pick. It was not a strong quarterback draft. Obviously, we only saw Kenny Pickett go there in the first round. He's now on his 3rd team since all of this took place. What are when you look back at this list and you see all these guys' names, what do you think of this class and what do you think of it going forward? Do you see more guys that could develop into maybe potentially Pro Bowl players from this list? And what do you think just as an overall whole?
The one thing I say every year when it comes to the 5th-year option is that the players who did get declined, and we just mentioned 10 names who will be getting declined here today, this sometimes could be a blessing in disguise for the player because you're still young, you're still a former first-round pick, you're still likely going to have some playing time coming up over here. And if that's the case, you are now going into your contract year and you're going to become a free agent after the season. And we have seen many players over the years who had their 5th-year option decline. They ball out in their contract here, and all of a sudden, now it's time to make a decision on that player. And it's like, we could have just picked up his option last year and not be in this situation. I'm reminded of Daniel Jones when his 5th-year option was declined by the Giants. Balled out that first year of Brian Daboll, made the playoffs, beat the Vikings in the wild card round. Boom, got a $40 million per year new deal that offseason. I think of Josh Jacobs when his 5th-year option was declined by the Raiders. He was tagged that offseason. The next year, he became a free agent and signed with the Green Bay Packers on that big deal. I remember Corey Davis, the former number 5 overall pick with the Titans, the receiver. His 5th-year option was declined. Had a good year that final year of his contract, became a free agent, signed a nice 3-year deal with the Jets in free agency. So sometimes your 5th-year option being declined could become a blessing in disguise because you're just one step closer to becoming a free agent and, of course, having the entire league bidding for your services. So that is kind of the upside here. But looking back at this draft, you look like that was the first year of like the Joe Shane, Brian Daboll era. And I look back at them having the number 5 and number 7 pick in that draft. And Kayvon Thibodeau has been a good player. He has not been the outstanding Pro Bowl type of a pass rusher for them. Evan Neal at number 7, that was the year they needed an offensive lineman. He has just not panned out, whether it's been at right tackle, at right guard. I know there have been times where he barely played last year and he would have appreciated a trade. Like that type of a draft, when you have 2 top 10 picks and it does not work out the way you hoped, it kind of sets you back a little bit. And again, that's where the Giants that year had an amazing year. They made the playoffs, but ever since, they have been a disappointment. So whenever you have those type of situations where you have that many picks, especially high in the draft, you hope you're able to hit on it, because if you don't, you could end up in these situations where you're always picking at the top of the draft. Look at a team like the Jets. They had 3 first-round picks in this draft, 3 foundational players. And even though they had 3 foundational players, they still have not been able to sniff the success. So it's so interesting looking back at some of these drafts over here and seeing some of the players who were taken or were not taken. Even like that draft was a big offensive lineman draft. I remember it was who's going to go first. Would it be Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal, or Charles Cross? Everyone back then said Evan Neal was the safest prospect because he could play left tackle, right tackle, or both guard position.
That box jump that he did,
Yep.
that just
Remember
blew
that?
everyone out of the water. Like, this is going to be the most athletic offensive lineman. How would you not take him?
It just shows how we just don't know anything. And even like the receivers that year, I mean, I think Jameson Williams has been outstanding. He's been a great player so far, but he's also had some trouble, whether it's suspensions and gamblings and whatever. And the Lions traded up from 32 to 12 to make them. Remember that big trade they did, going from the Rams pick, which they got from the Stafford trade, all the way to 12. Jameson has been a pretty good player for them, I would say. The Vikings going all the way down to 32 and taking Luis Seen in that draft has now worked out. So sometimes looking back at some of these trades is also very interesting as well. So even though the Lions probably giving up that much to move up, he has not been the most, electric player like a Garrett Wilson per se, but it was probably worth it moving up from down there where Luis Seen was taken by the Minnesota Vikings. So looking back at these drafts just 3 years later, it's a reason why it bothers me sometimes that we do draft grades immediately after a draft. You cannot forecast a draft until 3 years later, which is right now. But looking back at this draft, half of it hit, half of it didn't. And like we said yesterday, Baltimore in this draft, They just let the players come to them. Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, premium positions. Don't take a safety, don't take a center. I would say that worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's just the best answer is the easiest answer. I want to go back to one of the players that we spoke about a moment ago, and that's Kenny Pickett. He's in
Yeah.
an interesting situation because now, he just won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's now been dished out. He's with the Cleveland Browns, who currently have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. Deshaun Watson's going to knock that number down to 4 because he's going to be out. He could be another player from this group, seemingly, that could get cut. Do you anticipate that he's going to actually make the Browns roster, or is he a candidate to get traded again?
Obviously, we're gonna have to have the training camp come around. But I think when we spoke about the blessing in disguise thing, I think he would fall into that category because if he's able to just show out during OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and just make the roster, you can't tell me right now there is a quarterback on that Browns roster that will start 17 games this year. If he's able to, and honestly, if you really think a Dylan Gabriel or a Shador Sanders are going to be the week 1 starter, I guess it's possible. But I think the favorite right now would be Pickett or Flacco. If Pickett ends up winning it, he has a chance to be the guy this year and just leave those guys on the bench and then become the Daniel Jones of what Daniel was in New York, right? Getting your 5th-year option declined, you go into a contract year. If you play well, you are in a very, very good situation going into free agency because we know teams are going to overspend after 1 year of production. It just happened. So I think Kenny Pickett is in a very unique situation going into this year in Cleveland. Really, all the quarterbacks in that quarterback room have a toss-up chance of starting that year, and whoever gets on the field first has the best chance of saying, I'm taking this job and keeping it. So I wouldn't jump so far to say Kenny might get traded. If Kenny is able to just put together a nice training camp, he's on a very cheap contract this year, final year of his rookie contract. He could be the guy throughout the course of the year if he could pull that off. And maybe, just maybe, being 1 year in Philadelphia, being with Kellen Moore, being with Nick Sirianni, watching Jalen Hurts, maybe that helped him because we expect too much out of these quarterbacks right away. Some of them succeed right away, like a CJ Stroud. Some of them, look at Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, whoever it is, they need some time to get their feet wet. And Kenny was thrown into Pittsburgh, a veteran roster, a fan base that wants stuff to happen right away. It didn't work out. So we'll see where he is right now going into year 4 with this Browns team. And maybe he's able to pull something out. And if not, we mentioned it the other day, Cleveland's not going to carry 4 quarterbacks on the 53. One of these guys will be the odd man out or be on the practice squad. So it's going to be a fun one in Berea, Ohio this year.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to past the draft, because now that the draft is passed, there's a good opportunity to go out there and sign free agents, because those guys that were available out there that might have been on the higher end of the talent pool, a guy like Amari Cooper, they're no longer subject to having the comp pick restrictions, meaning those teams that would sign them would be potentially losing one of those picks if they were be able to get one in the first place. So now we have a list of players that are pretty interesting still. For those of you on YouTube, you can take a look at the list that we have up here now, featuring guys like Aaron Rodgers, Amari Cooper, Shaq Mason. You've got some interesting guys that obviously are veterans with Von Miller, Stephon Gilmore. Are there any guys right now that stand out to you as like somebody you want to go get before training camp takes place?
Some of these players, for what it's worth, have been waiting on purpose. Like it's not like they don't have a market. Stephon Gilmore has now a long history of saying, listen, I'm just not going to sign right now. I'm going to wait until, before training camp, during training camp, before the regular season last year. He signed in Minnesota. He's still a very, very good player. So there are players who purposely wait. There are teams who also purposely wait because of the comp formula. But like you mentioned, Ben, now that the formula is officially gone, some of these players might get some movement. We're going to put the graphic back up over here. And obviously, it all really starts with Aaron Rodgers because we're all just waiting for the Steelers to sign him, or he signs with the Steelers. We know that he has a personal matter, whatever it is. I do think there was a bit of a tell in the draft that when the Steelers had opportunity after opportunity to draft a quarterback, whether it was Shador or a different one, they were like, nah. Of course, they drafted Will Howard, but Omar Khan, their GM, made it pretty clear they want to bring in 4 quarterbacks into training camp. And right now it's Skylar Thompson, it's Mason Rudolph, and it's Will Howard. There's one more spot there that is waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Ryan Tannehill had some interest from the Vikings. did not play last year. Minnesota just traded for Sam Howell, so I would imagine that option is now off the table. He has been very, very selective. Like I said, he did not play last year, and he is perfectly fine being in Nashville over here when it comes to all the money he has made in his career and just waiting for the right opportunity. Running backs out there, Nick Chubb posted a couple of videos on his Instagram this week. He wants to get back. I don't see it being in Cleveland just because they just drafted 2 running backs in the draft last week, and they do have some other guys left over from last year as well, including Jerome Ford. So I just don't see it being back in Cleveland as much of a fan favorite he has been there. J.K. Dobbins did get the rare unrestricted free agent tag this week. We spoke about it yesterday on the show. He would still apply to the compensatory formula because that tag was placed on him. I have heard that there has been some more interest in here as of late. His asking price has been too high throughout the offseason, which has been part of a problem. He did have a good year last year, did miss some time, but not as much time as he has in previous years due to injury. But his asking price has to come down. And if it doesn't, by training camp, the Chargers would have exclusive negotiating rights with him, which is what that UFA tag does with him. The receiver market has been slow. Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. We just saw Elijah Moore sign in Buffalo on Wednesday, but those receivers in particular, they were just shocked at how little value they were getting on the market. When they saw some of these other deals get done early on, like a Devontae Adams who got $23 million per year, or what Cooper Kupp got in Seattle, they were like, we deserve to get that type of money. That type of money never came, and they've just been sitting ever since. Dallas has been interested in another receiver. The Chargers, I know they drafted Trey Harris here in the draft in round 2. They were poking around as well, but some of these other receivers, the money they got, like a Mike Williams who got like a 1-year deal worth $3 million, like that has been the area of where some of these offers have been coming in, and those players are like, heck no, we're not doing that. So we're going to see if anything changes, but they have been taking their time because they believe for what they've done so far in the league and what they could still give the league, they deserve more money than that. A couple of other players here that I would mention. The list is very long. Von Miller is on there. CJ Mosley is on there. Kaiser White is on there. Like, there are some players there who are productive and can definitely make an impact. Matt Judon is on there. Rasul Douglas, Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon is somebody who has had interest from a couple of teams. But 2 players in particular I want to mention quickly: Jedrick Wills and Asante Samuel Jr. Those 2 guys, young players, premium positions. You would be like, oh, they would be signed by now. I think both those players coming off this year have been dealing with significant injuries. Jedrick has had knee problems for a number of years now. Asante Samuel has had something going on with his back or his neck. I think teams are a little bit like, hey, figure that out first before we start talking about contract terms with those 2 players. So you see all these aging veterans on the list, and you see those 2 guys, like, why are they still there? I think that is the reason with both those players. And the last one that I will mention here on the list that we have over here that I want to bring up, we'll pull up the list quickly right over here, is Brandon Scherff. Yeah, that's the one I wanted to bring up. Veteran guard. There are a number of teams who have had interest in Brandon Scherff. We all know how much teams need offensive lineman help. Brandon has made a lot of money in his career. I believe the next contract he signs will make him the highest paid guard in NFL history. So he has been taking his time as well. But think of a team like Cincinnati. They've been looking for guard help. A team like Seattle, I know they drafted Grace Dable, but they have been looking for guard help. There are a number of teams out there who have been interested in Brandon Scherff, but he has also been waiting for the right opportunity to come along if his career will continue.
Do you have a favorite guy that's still available out there? If you were just to say, this is the guy that's going to make the biggest impact when you sign him.
Well, the one player who I didn't mention there, Justin Simmons on the back end of a defense. I mean, just because of the leadership that Justin Simmons brings, like obviously all those years in Denver, the multiple time All-Pro, Pro Bowl, and even last year in Atlanta, Listen, it wasn't like the prime Justin Simmons, but you hear some of the players like an AJ Terrell or even like a Bijan Robinson on the offensive side just talking about the leadership that Justin Simmons brings to a team. He has had some interest as well from teams. I think Carolina has checked in on him. They've been trying to add a safety here. They brought in a couple of safeties for visits a few weeks ago. He's a player that if you have a young team, it would make sense to bring in a guy like Justin Simmons, who is just one of the best leaders in the NFL and for a long time was one of the best safeties in the NFL. So I like him a lot. I also like CJ Mosley, we've barely heard of this entire offseason. If he wants to continue playing, great player in Baltimore, great player with the Jets, outstanding leader in the middle of the defense. He would be somebody else. I like those veteran leader type of players, adding them at this point in the year, bringing them into the locker room. That could sometimes make a difference for a team being good and then being great.
All right, Ari, that's all I have for you today. For you guys that are watching on YouTube, thank you. For those of you listening on Apple and Spotify, thank you. Also go over to YouTube, hit subscribe. You can't get too much content from us. It's wonderful. You can also go and watch the 10 questions that I asked Ari, which is a web exclusive. It is incredibly ridiculous. It has zero value to any of you, but I think it's entertaining. It's dumb, but it's entertaining. We're going to be doing more web exclusive stuff as well. That is a little bit more serious at times. So make sure that you're going and checking all of that out. As for now, Ari, let's go ahead and let these people go.
Yep, that will do it here for our Thursday, May 1 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. We will be back here tomorrow morning to wrap up the week, talk more about the NFL and everything going on, and we'll see all of you here tomorrow morning.